Who is supporting Russia? Too many missiles. The Russian satellite network reported that the Russian aerospace forces launched a large-scale airstrike against Ukraine. Zaluzny, the commander of the Ukrainian armed forces, said Russia launched more than 40 missiles and about 35 suicide drones. According to reports, on May 29, the Russian army launched 11 Iskander ballistic missiles, 40 Kh-101 cruise missiles and Kh-555 cruise missiles, and 38 Iranian Witness 131 and 136 suicide bombers. Sex drone raid on Kiev. The May 29 airstrike was Russia's 15th large-scale strike on Kiev this month. In these 15 airstrikes, the Russian army launched at least more than 400 missiles and more than 200 suicide drones. In the past few months, the largest Russian army can only launch more than 100 missiles a month. And now it has skyrocketed to 400 missiles a month. According to Ukrainian intelligence, Russia can only produce dozens of missiles a month. But now, Russia's missiles and drones are hitting more and more. The Russian Kh-101 cruise missile has a range of 5,000 kilometers and can also carry nuclear warheads, which has a range twice that of the US Tomahawk cruise missile. Hundreds of them have been shot on the Russian-Ukrainian battlefield. The Russian army also launched hypersonic missiles, each costing tens of millions of dollars. On the Russian-Ukrainian battlefield, the number of cruise missiles launched by the Russian army exceeded the number of cruise missiles used by the United States in previous wars. It was several times the number of cruise missiles launched by the US military in the Iraq War. Russia is an enterprise directly under the federal government for all military industrial groups and defense technology companies. Among them, Russia has 5 major missile and shell production groups, which are under the unified management of the Russian Technology Group. Sigaretuo Scientific and Production Complex. Therefore, the production of Russian missile shells is all under the unified control of the state, and production can be increased or reduced according to the needs of the Russian government. As long as there are enough chips and electronic components, Russia can continuously produce various types of missiles. Despite Western export restrictions and manufacturer bans, supply channels to Russia remain unimpeded. In the last few months of last year, $2.6 billion worth of chips and electronic components entered Russia through private trade from Turkey, South Asia, East Asia, and other countries. In addition, Russia itself has the production capacity of 65 to 250 nanometers military chips, which can basically guarantee military needs. NATO intelligence was cracked, and the Russian army suddenly started bombing. But this time, the real target of the Russian airstrikes was not Kiev, but to use continuous airstrikes on Kiev. Let the Ukrainian army assemble all advanced anti-aircraft missiles to Kiev. In this wave of air raids on Kiev, the Russian army successfully intercepted 36 of the 40 cruise missiles launched by the Ukrainian army, all 11 ballistic missiles were intercepted, and 30 of the 36 drones were successfully intercepted. It seems that the Ukrainian army's Kiev air defense battle has achieved an important victory, but the Russian army has also successfully carried out the tactics of attacking the West. The Russian satellite network reported that just as the Ukrainian army was gathering forces to defend Kiev, Russian missiles raided several Ukrainian air bases, among which 5 Ukrainian combat aircraft parked at the airport were destroyed in one fell swoop at the Khmelny Sky Air Force Base. On the Russian-Ukrainian battlefield, Ukraine and NATO have cooperated closely. In fact, high-end ammunition supported by NATO military, such as Storm Shadow cruise missiles, HAM anti-radiation missiles and JDAM precision-guided bombs. Both are deposited in Romania and Poland. Only if the Ukrainian Air Force takes action will it transport a corresponding number of missiles to Ukraine. Ukrainian Air Force tactics are also air guerrilla warfare tactics. Ukrainian warplanes are engaged in guerrilla warfare throughout Ukraine. It will not be stationed at an airport for a long time, nor will it be deployed publicly at an airport, and it will make more use of highway runways to avoid the Russian aerospace forces and missile attacks. This time, the Russian army can lock the deployment location of the Ukrainian fighter jets, discover the location of the Ukrainian radar station and the temporary ammunition depot. There is only one possibility that Russia has cracked NATO and Ukrainian intelligence. The most important job of the monitoring and security troops of the Russian electronic warfare unit is to monitor, intercept and decipher wireless signals. At the same time, in order to prevent various mobile networks from being monitored and leaked, the Russian Ministry of Defense approved the Shielding Electronic Warfare New Information Security System to be put into the battlefield. The system uses multiple high-power antennas and radio jammers to jam and suppress all known mobile communication frequency bands, while monitoring the enemy's classified communications. Russian electronic warfare units collect a large amount of intelligence and signals every day, and analyze these large amounts of intelligence. Then, according to the combat habits of the Uzbekistan army, certain actions of the Uzbekistan army can be locked. Especially for the Ukrainian military airport, carry out the first strike. The Russian army has lost 2,000 tanks. Oryx website, according to the statistics of Russian battlefield loss videos and photos, the number of Russian tank losses has exceeded 2,000, and has reached 2,002 tanks. The main losses are T-72 tanks and T-80 tanks. The production of Russian tanks is also very large. Russia will produce more than 200 T-90M tanks in 2022 and refurbish more than 500 T-72B3M tanks and T-80BBM tanks. Coupled with the refurbished T-62 tanks, Russia produces and refurbishes more than 1,000 tanks a year. At the same time, more than 5,000 tank and self-propelled artillery crews were trained. In contrast, the tank production lines of the United States, the United Kingdom, France, and Germany have long since stopped, and now only a small number of old models can be improved. Putin said that Russia's anti-aircraft missile production is 3 times that of the United States. This is a piece of valuable information. The United States produces about 600 to 800 anti-aircraft missiles per year, so Russia's production will be more than 2,000. Russia has made public 4 truce conditions, the most important of which is that it must be recognized that the Russian-controlled areas of the 4 states in the referendum are Russian territories. On the contrary, Russia must fight to the end. From Russia's point of view, this Russo-Ukrainian war is a battle for the founding of modern Russia, a battle for the reshaping of the Russian nation, and a battle to put an end to the long and painful history after the disintegration of the Soviet Union. On the current Russian-Ukrainian front line, the Ukrainian side has disclosed from time to time the preparations for the counter-offensive, such as the installation of new equipment and the training of new troops. Even the Russian army is accumulating strength, keeping a large number of mobile troops away from the battlefield, and ready to enter a new battlefield at any time. This kind of look is the calm before the decisive battle. The Ukrainian military revealed that all foreign aid weapons and equipment have been put in place, and the military counter-offensive operation has been fully launched. Among the weapons and equipment aided by the West are at least 60 Leopard tanks and European Storm Shadow cruise missiles. The latter can be used for the MiG-29 fighter jets aided by Poland and other countries, and the modified Ukrainian Air Force Su-24 fighter bombers. The European Storm Shadow cruise missile can be launched from a safe airspace 250 kilometers away from the target. This means that the Ukrainian Air Force can use the Storm Shadow cruise missile to carry out strategic strikes against targets in the Russian Special Military Operations Zone and in the deep east of the Russian-Ukrainian border. The main targets include the Russian military's forward air defense system, military assembly points and material operation centers. Over the past year since the war began, Ukrainian Air Force equipment and airport facilities have been almost completely destroyed, and the remaining fighters have been absolutely suppressed by the Russian air defense system. In addition to the Storm Shadow cruise missiles aided by Europe, the United States is ostensibly whether to provide Ukraine with F-16 fighter jets. Obviously, as long as the Americans are relentless, there is a complete set of combat weapons and ammunition systems behind the F-16 fighter jets, which can test the extreme capabilities of Russian air defense missiles like the Storm Shadow cruise missile. At present, all Russian S-300 missile systems in Ukraine's special military operations are facing the deadly threat of Storm Shadow cruise missiles. This is also the main reason why the Russian army wants to dig deep into the hidden Ukrainian air base and decisively blow up the Starkostanov air base in the Khmelnytskyi Oblast in western Ukraine. The Su-24 fighter bomber wing modified by NATO technology is stationed in the Starkostanov Air Force Base, and a large number of Storm Shadow cruise missiles and aerial bombs are also stored. However, after the US and European aid weapons are in place, the Russian military is temporarily unable to obtain specific weapon model information, which has caused great technical panic and psychological pressure on the Russian military's defense. What should come will always come. On May 30th, in the direction of Kherson, Russia's K-6, an S-400 missile position of the Russian Air Defense Force was attacked, and the entire system including the command vehicle was almost completely destroyed. The Russian S-400 missile system was destroyed. This is the first time since the start of the war between Russia and Ukraine. What makes the Russian military vigilant and nervous is that it was not the Storm Shadow cruise missile that attacked the Kherson S-400 missile position this time, but a high-precision long-range strike rocket, GMLRS. Ukraine previously obtained the M142 Hippocampus rocket launcher system, which can launch high-precision rockets with a range of 75 kilometers, but this strike distance is not enough to threaten the S-300 missile positions, let alone the S-400 missile positions. Kherson, the Russian S-400 missile system was destroyed. According to the Russian military's point of view, if Ukraine's high-precision long-range strike rocket, GMLRS, really destroyed the S-400 missile position, then there is only one possibility. The Americans have already given Ukraine's M142 Hippocampus rocket. The technology has been upgraded, and it has been equipped with a longer range, more than 150 kilometers, high-precision long-range strike rocket, GMLRS. This range has exceeded the air defense radius of the S-300 missile, making it no longer a threat to Ukrainian aircraft fighting on the front line. And 150 kilometers is also the limit defense range of the S-400 missile, basic type. Extremely suppress the frontline air defense system of the Russian army, eliminate the security threat of the Ukrainian Air Force to the greatest extent, and prepare for the entry of more advanced American and European fighter jets into the battlefield. To achieve this goal, the United States and Europe have crossed the strategic red line drawn by Russia. With long-range strike weapons, the Ukrainian armed forces will first use them to attack and destroy the Russian air defense system, and then strategically destroy high-value Russian targets within a depth of 150 to 250 kilometers along the Russian-Ukrainian border. Once the air supremacy in the theater and near the theater is tilted or shifted, the ground operations of the Russian army will be restricted, and pure passive defense cannot be maintained for a long time. American military experts said that the longer the timeline of the war, the more advanced Western strike weapons will join the war in order to be tested. But this is obviously not good for what Russia wants to achieve. As we all know, naval strength is one of the important symbols to measure whether a country is a military power. Of course, those landlocked countries are not considered. With the continuous development in recent years, our country's naval power can be said to have advanced by leaps and bounds, and it has already ranked among the top ranks in the world. Some time ago, the 7th ship Zunyi and the 8th ship Xianyang of the domestic 055 large guided missile destroyer were officially released. Up to now, our Army has owned 8 10,000-ton large guided missile destroyers. According to data, the Type 055 large guided missile destroyer is currently the most capable guided missile destroyer in the world. Its displacement is as high as 13,000 tons. It is among the top destroyers in the world. Plus class guided missile cruiser is even more powerful. The United States attaches great importance to the Type 055 large-scale drive of our Army. In the latest version of the guidelines for the identification of ships at sea in China, 2021-2022, it has been nicknamed Blade C, which is defined as a huge attack force. Missile cruiser. Note, it's not a guided missile destroyer, but a guided missile cruiser. For the invincible United States, it seems unusual to call our warships like this. But we don't need to belittle the other party's professionalism, and we won't make the low-level mistake of calling a destroyer a cruiser. In other words, according to the specifications, our Type 055 guided missile destroyer is actually a missile cruiser. There is no doubt that even the United States is greedy, let alone other countries. Especially those countries that often want to compare with China but still can't. For example, India seems very unconvinced. After hearing that China has such a large destroyer, it is itchy in my heart and vows to build an Indian version of a 10,000-ton large destroyer. Not long ago, India officially announced this plan and named it a new generation of P-18. It claims to be able to kill China's 055 in seconds. Its displacement exceeds 13,000 tons. The entire ship adopts a stealth design. It is also equipped with 2 laser weapon systems of 300 kilowatts and 100 kilowatts, which can be used for short-range anti-missile defense. But what is more funny is that the ship's anti-submarine weapons system retains 2 ancestral RBU-6000 rocket-boosted anti-submarine deep bombs. You may not know the name. To put it bluntly, it is a second-hand product removed from other guided missile destroyers. And these 2 second-hand goods are the biggest highlights on the P-18 destroyer, which claims to crush the Chinese Type 055 destroyer. Strictly speaking, there are only two countries in the world that can independently design large guided missile destroyers and provide all supporting facilities independently, and one is the United States. The other one is China. To put it bluntly, India wants to wrestle with China in the field of guided missile destroyers, and it is not a short breath. Even for technological cache such as Japan, several large phased array destroyers such as Gang Atago use the American Aegis system for phase control systems and radars. Another example is the most advanced models in Europe, such as the British Type 45, and the French Horizon, all of which use the active small caliber phased array system of the masked top multifaceted array, and the large Aegis system of China and the United States. Not in the same order of magnitude. Therefore, if a country like India likes to draw cakes to satisfy its hunger, if it wants to catch up with China, it can only talk about it, or make a PPT, and have a good time. *ST Meishang is mainly engaged in landscape construction and ecological restoration. Recently, the China Securities Regulatory Commission issued an announcement confirming the company's years of financial fraud. As of now, the company's share price has fallen by more than 90% from its highest point. Some investors have also taken up legal weapons to claim. *ST Meishang has been fraudulent for 8 consecutive years. Some investors lost more than 1 million. Mr. Li from Nanjing, Jiangsu is one of the people involved in the claim. He said that 3 years ago, because he felt that the company's performance was very good, he bought Meishang Ecology at a cost of more than 7 yuan. Later, the stock price fell all the way, but at that time he never thought that the company would cheat financially. After that, Meishang Ecology was exposed to a series of problems, and I was already locked up. So far as the current stock price is concerned, the compensation is about 2.7 million yuan. At that time, I was very angry. I just sued the company, let it bear civil liability, and let it pay compensation. Since it is fake, it should bear legal responsibility. The announcement shows that from 2012 to the first half of 2020, Meishang Ecology has inflated its net profit to 457 million yuan by confirming the recovery of accounts receivable in advance and falsely recording bank interest income. In response, investors have initiated civil claims for misrepresentation of the company's securities. Xie Beoping, senior partner of Jiangsu Kindian law firm, said, "There are already more than 70 people who have officially entrusted us, and there will be more in the future. The losses of each investor who entrusted us are between 100,000 yuan and 500,000 yuan. It is understood that investors who bought the shares of Meishang Ecology from June 25, 2015 to April 29, 2021, and sold or still held after April 30, 2021 and lost money, or in 2021 investors who bought from July 1 to December 23, 2021, and sold or still held after December 24, 2021 and lost money, can participate in the registration of investor rights litigation if they meet one of the conditions. In the A-share market, it is not uncommon for investors to claim compensation due to company fraud. For example, Kangmei Pharmaceutical previously compensated investors with 2.459 billion yuan for false statements in its annual report. Another company, Philo Acoustics, was also sentenced by the Shanghai Financial Court compensation of 123 million yuan to shareholders. Will ST Meishang delist? On-site visit to the company's Wuxi headquarters. In response to a series of violations of laws and regulations in information disclosure and fraudulent issuance, the China Securities Regulatory Commission decided to impose fines of different amounts on Meishang Ecology and related responsible persons, and imposed a lifelong sentence on Wang Yinjian, then chairman, general manager, and actual controller of the company. Market access measures. For a while, there was a lot of discussion in the market on whether *ST Meishang would be delisted. What is the current operating situation of the company? How likely is it to be delisted? The reporter visited the company's office in Wuxi, Jiangsu. In Wuxi's Shanshui City Science and Education Software Park, there are 2 buildings with Meishang Ecology written on the top, and one of the buildings has only 2 floors with lights on. The reporter entered the company as an investor, and after expressing his intention, the staff gave a negative reply. After many exchanges, the front desk staff took the reporter upstairs, and a staff member who claimed to be the secretary of the company received the reporter. However, he was more cautious throughout the whole process. During the conversation, when faced with many questions raised by reporters, the other party mostly avoided talking about them. After that, the reporter walked to a building that was also marked Myshani Ecology, and noticed that there was no sign of office in this building, and some building materials were piled up at the door. However, from the perspective of financial data, Myshani Ecology has not yet touched the conditions for delisting. For example, although the company's net profit has been negative for 2 consecutive years, its operating income has not been lower than 100 million yuan, and its falsely increased profits have not met the condition of the total amount of falsely recorded net profit reaching more than 500 million yuan. In addition, the company recently started pre-restructuring work. Industry insiders believe that, judging from the past situation, there are still great uncertainties in the restructuring of Myshani Ecology.